goodness.
I don't even know how to get to the next page. Are we on the next?
We don't see everyone.
Yep, there it is. Page 2. Oh no. Cuss.
Oh, they have their videos.
Oh
off.
yeah. What up, girl?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cedric, you are way too energized right now.
Y'all, I'm
No,
freaking
he's
out.
exactly
I'm
what we
freaking
need
out,
right
so I'm
now.
on AC mode. Hi, Emily. What's up, Melissa?
What is up,
Freaking out.
everyone?
What up, Judd? Congratulations, sir.
Woo, Judd. Hi, Sarah.
I don't like the way that they put Judd and Sarah like right on top of each other. Can we chill with
I
that?
saw that.
I'm not freaking out. Okay, Ashley. What up, Rob? I see y'all background. Welcome to Florida.
Big Swole's getting ready to join.
Is he? And
Ooh, Big Swole.
That's Swolemites are coming through.
Big Swole.
Come on, Buzz Cut. What up, Swole? Swolemites. Oh my goodness, y'all.
Ooh, Big
My
Swole and
screen
his
right
dog.
now is on something else. I haven't seen as many people on my screen since DeMarco's. I'm not freaking out. I'm gonna chill. I'm just breathing exercises.
Breathing exercises.
I need to turn my camera off real quick. I'm just kidding.
So we're
Welcome,
just gonna give
everyone.
it a little bit for people to join on. We had, when I last checked, we had nearly 90 people register for this series. So we're really excited, and we want to just give everyone a chance to log on and figure out technical difficulties and give them a chance to join in. So we'll just give it a few minutes.
Dean, you are okay to listen. Hi, Amy. I'm glad you guys are here. Like for real. Let's party.
So excited to see everyone.
So excited.
I'm trying to like go between the pages so I can like.
I want to, but I feel like it's gonna do something to my internet, so I'm gonna chill.
Yeah, you don't. We did a trial run right before this, and Cedric froze a couple of times, so we're asking him not to move and to just.
It's probably not good because if I'm not moving, you can't tell if I froze or not. But y'all
You'll
just
be talking.
put your
It's fine.
seatbelt on and get ready because I'm not going anywhere. I will
Technology.
get every bit of
It'll be-
information that you missed. Okay, Sharon, I see you with your notebook. She ready to take some notes.
It's fine. Everything's
I got all of the nuggets for y'all. So let's
Yes, Cedric.
Let me get my notes up.
Hi,
I'm
Tessa. I see
insane.
you in the car.
Where Tessa at? What page is she on? Page 3?
I literally
I
made
saw
it
page
Mark.
1.
for me
Page 1.
responsible while
Keith, I see you with the seatbelt on.
Safety first, everyone.
What's
Buckle
better
up.
than listening to the radio? Listening to Better Together.
Listening to Cedric.
Did Cedric freeze, or was it?
Don't do this to me, Cedric.
Cedric, you're frozen. You might want to join on your phone just to have a
We love
backup.
that song. Freeze again.
Yep, you're frozen. So many volunteers and alum and adult mentors, IBH staff.
And Tim. To see Tim.
And
Tim does look pretty cute.
He's so cute.
Cedric told him
spinach
that
dip.
his shirt looked like spinach dip.
Come on, spinach dip. Like from this angle, it looks like back in the day when the TV didn't work and it was like the white noise. Love that for you.
Cedric, why are you roasting this man? He tried
It's
our
my
session. You gotta
dad.
be nice.
It's my dad. Like, don't talk about me and my dad's relationship.
Okay, you're right. I'll back off.
Everyone was curious. They're flowers. Cedric, or not Cedric, Isaiah, are your parents on yet?
I don't see them.
I don't
Oh
see 'em.
no!
I'm
It's
gonna text
not the
them.
recital, and they didn't show up. Keep looking. We'll help you find your parents. Come on, Nemo.
Mom, Dad?
Just keep swimming. Okay,
I'm
Orlando
texting them right now.
down there in the corner. Well, thank you for being here. Gmail, Ashley Webb. That's
Gmail?
Gmail. Trying to get on my phone.
Oh.
I feel like
Okay, we'll let you join in on your phone. And then I think we'll get started just because we want to be mindful of everyone's time, and we do have a full hour. And I want to make sure that those who joined.
The fullest.
Yeah. So, Cedric, do you want me to let you get started on your phone?
Yeah, you can do your intro, and then until I freeze again. So sorry about this, y'all.
No, it's okay.
It didn't happen yesterday. It just want to act up and show out right now for y'all.
You know, it's showtime, so of course.
Yeah, so we will get started. I'd first like to welcome everyone to the Cebrin Goodman Teen Institute and Operation Snowball series of Better Together. Before we get started, I think it's important to provide a background about our youth organizations and how this series came to life, and what to expect over the next few weeks. So there's a lot of attendees from all over. I know there's a large group from Florida. Cedric shared the information. Like I said, we have alum, we have Snowball board members, chapter leaders. We're kind of from all over the place. So first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Ashley Webb, and I am the Assistant Vice President of Programs at the Illinois Association for Behavioral Health. CGTI and Operation Snowball are both youth prevention programs that are housed out of IVH. Our programs share a similar mission where we empower youth with the knowledge, skills, and confidence to lead an alcohol, tobacco, and drug-free life. And we make this reality by helping teens develop and strengthen their leadership skills and teach them to be catalysts for change in their own school and community. When I explain our program, I always explain that these are friendships that have turned into family. A family where we're one big family, where we love and we support and we educate one another. And recently we listen and we empower and we stand up for what's right, no matter what your race might be. So when the murder of George Floyd happened 3 weeks ago, we had a leadership team meeting, and I asked our leaders what they were feeling and what their thoughts were and how we can support our Black community and how these programs could further advance. And the series developed from a conversation actually Isaiah had, and one that he brought to my attention. And we thought of how we can and we must do more, how it isn't okay to just say that we stand with our Black community, but we will stand, we will advocate, we will educate, that we will actively be part of the change. We know our society has a long way to go. And with our programs, we want to make sure that we're actively in the forefront of creating that change. So I just want to thank you guys for joining us today and joining us over the next few Wednesdays. Our goal is really simple. We just want to start the conversation. We want to educate and we want to end racial injustice in our community. So Isaiah and Cedric are going to lead these series, and they're two of the most passionate high energy people that I know, and I'm really excited for them to share with us and lead us over the next series. We had originally scheduled 4, but as we were meeting last night and going through, we realized we immediately jumped to 5, and then we were at 6, and then we thought, let's just see where the conversation goes. This doesn't have to end because we know there's so much to talk about. So with that, I will stop talking and I will hand it over to our speakers today, Isaiah and Cedric. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so thankful for Ashley and for CGTI and just this whole community for giving me and Cedric this platform to talk about some really important things over the next few weeks. I wanted to just start off by saying that some of the topics that we're going to cover are very heavy, and it is going to be at times difficult to listen to. So if at any point in time you feel the need to turn off your video or take a second or leave the call for any reason, there's absolutely no judgment there. We want, as we go through this, we want to start this conversation, but we don't want anyone to feel like they're being judged or attacked at any point in this. The goal is just to educate and move our society forward. I wanted to start by just giving an introduction of who I am. I'm Isaiah. I've been volunteering with CGTI. This would have been my 9th year at camp. I am biracial. My dad is Black. My mom is white. And so I have seen both sides of the things that are happening today. And I have personally experienced a lot of the discrimination and seen what that's like, being biracial and being, you can't really tell, but I'm very light skinned. So I am white passing most of the time. But I am also very, very aware that at any moment, anyone can decide for me that I'm Black and choose to discriminate against me because of that. My friends like to joke with me that I drive like a grandpa. And part of the reason for that is that I am afraid of being pulled over, and what could happen if someone were to decide that in that moment that I was a threat to them, or I was a criminal or a thug for any reason. And so even though I do have a lot of privilege in my life, I am hyper aware at all times that that can be taken away from me. And I'm also like, see it with my family. Like I'm scared for my family a lot. Like my dad is on this call. Dad, I am scared for you. I'm worried about you on a regular basis because I don't know, like, I just want you to be safe and I want my family to be safe. And these are things that weigh on me every day. And so that's part of why I reach out to Ashley to start this conversation, is because I feel like as a society we have so much to grow, and I don't want to have this fear for my family anymore. Cedric, do you have any thoughts on that or stories you want to share?
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Perfect. So my video is playing. You see me down here. That's my phone. I want to make sure that we don't pause. My name is Cedric Nickles. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I found out about CGTI through a friend at Universal. Her name is Cheyenne. I'm very involved in the volunteer community here in Orlando, and she knew that. Through Universal, we get grants that go to nonprofit organizations through our volunteerism, and I was recognized by my department, and a young lady that had been coming to your camp for a while thought that I would, be a great asset for volunteering with you guys. So 2 years ago, we flew out to Eastern Illinois, and I just fell in love with everything what you guys are doing. We don't have anything like that except for like the Boys and Girls Club here in Orlando. And I just thought from the moment that I fell in love with all of you guys that we would begin to learn from you guys to be able to take what I learned at CGTI and bring it to Florida. That hasn't happened yet because I have been so like sock deep, knee deep in CGTI that I'm like contemplate all the time moving there and being a part of the greatness that is. I am, as of this year, an activity coordinator, and from the moment I came into camp, I thought that was like the coolest job. If you don't know me, am born to be a hype man. Like I literally work alongside DJs and like unfortunately like grab their microphones and like it's time to party. So like that's just my personality, always has been. I've been everybody's biggest cheerleader. I am the biggest hype man for the Orlando Solar Bears hockey team here. And it's just to my core, I was super proud to do this. And so very recently, a month ago, if not sooner, my world came crashing down. When I walked into the CGTI camp the first time, there were a lot of people who did not look like me, and that was okay. Really quick backstory before I get into the core of my backstory. Isaiah, are you timing me? Because I
Yeah,
forgot
you're good.
on my phone. Cool. That felt like a minute, so here goes 4. Okay, so I said it yesterday, and then like it didn't. It kind of hit the wall and fell, and it is so weird to say that, but I grew up white, y'all, and I know that might not be something that you would hear from somebody but like me, but went to an all-white elementary school, all-white middle school. What started off as an all-white high school, we'll talk about in later episodes. But pretty much my vernacular, my upbringing, the way I was raised, you couldn't tell me I was Black because of my surroundings. And so culture shock at that age was what I'll get into later. The schools in my area were F schools, and they got shut down. And so those schools from those areas were dispersed throughout our city, and the students from those schools came to my school, and I got to learn in middle school. My family had a moment where we were down on our luck, and so we lived in not so nice neighborhood, and were zoned to go to a school with impoverished children. And so I got to see that side of it, and it was a culture shock for me then. Being able to get out of it and attend the all white high school was another like realigning culture shock, and just to go back and forth, I feel like has given me the opportunity to be a bridge between two types of cultures, two types of people. And so going to CGTI, my first experience, there weren't very many people who looked like me. I had Jalen. I sort of had Isaiah for obvious reasons. And there's Anthony, and just like, these aren't things that I first look for when I am a part of a large thing, but they're very noticeable. You kind of miss the opportunity to look at the bigger picture of tokenism, which is something that we'll talk about in other episodes. But being the only Black person, or few of the only Black people in that situation, if there are 3 Black people, those other Black people with you are also tokens. And so we join in on the tokenism and like feel like, oh, this is what do you call it? Representation. And so we have the opportunity to feel comfortable around these people. But I have always felt comfortable around everyone. And I say all that to say there was a time where I definitely believed that all lives mattered because I didn't see color. And it is so important, as we're learning now, as we're moving forward, as we're growing better together, to understand color and to see color, to appreciate color. And so I was telling the leadership yesterday that there is a thing in culture with tokens that we deal with a lot, where there's a thing called a Black joke. And so these are things that you probably won't say around all Black people, but your friends are comfortable enough in your circles to make these jokes. And so as I'm approaching meeting all these people at this camp, I would throw a few out and they weren't received. And that was just like, wow, it just feels different. This is the way the world should feel. Like, not that nobody laughed or laughed too hard, but it just didn't feel organic because it wasn't funny, just because I could realize very soon that no one saw color, or at least no one saw me as Black. And so there's the tokenism joke that, like, you talk the way I do, and you dress differently, your pants aren't down to your knees and whatnot, and you carry yourself professionally. People don't really see you as Black, and so in your own mind you really feel like you can't relate to Black struggle. And so for all of that to happen in Illinois, I'm out in the cornfields. It's like a culture shock for me for the first time. There's corn and soy and like nothing else. And so Brett knows, like, we're driving through the city to get to camp, and it's just like, this is so far from the city. And in my mind, knowing the history of Black culture, this could be very scary. And so there's no street lights. Like, if I was out there by myself, I would feel like I would be in trouble. And in that moment, none of the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's going on right now was a factor. I felt very safe with, you know, a car full of white peers. And so entering camp, the first thing you notice is like, okay, there are very many schools that have a lot of tokens, or very many organizations that there isn't a whole lot of representation. So like, what I'll talk about later on is opportunity, and to be given this opportunity from CGTI for them to make a statement. And for my Black life to matter, this was such a gift for me. I don't take it lightly at all. I will elaborate on it, but Black people, we don't feel like we get many opportunities like this. So at the capacity, I thank you all for being here. As Isaiah said, this is going to be a heavy situation. But in anything where we're handling heavy situations, it's better to do it together. And I'm glad that you're all here. I'm glad that we can do this together. Like Isaiah said, if there is at any point we need to take a break, if this is too much for you, to not take away, if I feel like things are weighing heavy, Riley had the best exercise that we had done on a leadership call, where Ashley was the best leader in like pushing us forward to where we had to discuss CGTI leadership business, but before we had to address Black Lives Matter and the statement that CGTI had made on Black Lives. And so she, you know, pulled her pants up and puffed her chest out and said what she had to say about Black lives. And then we were just like, wow, this is groundbreaking. This is like moving forward. No other organization has visually shown how you move forward in doing this together. And to be a part of an organization that does that, I'm like, literally, I'm sorry, I got chills just now thinking about it. It's so empowering for Black people, because this is the beginning. You guys are the leaders amongst yourselves to make the blueprint of what these conversations should be like. And so to take away the heaviness and the emotion, we did a breathing exercise. And so a lot of you guys might not know what we're going to talk about. In this episode, we'll address a syllabus or like a table of contents of what we're going to address, to further put you at ease. But before we get into it, let's just go ahead and take a breathing exercise. We're going to breathe in for 10 seconds and then let it go. If you don't have that lung capacity, it's super fine. We learned during quarantine that a lot of us are out of shape. So let's go ahead. I'm going to give you these fingers, and just going to take a deep breath in. Already failed. And if you got the lung capacity, keep going. And then out. I forgot to use my fingers. In again. And then out. Namaste. Beautiful. Awesome. Isaiah, is my time up?
You're good. Like Cedric said, I did want to give just an overview of like what the plan is for this series. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how did we get to this point in the world, and I really wanted to give some context to some of the things that are happening right now. Talk about some important events that led us here. We're going to eventually talk about acceptance amongst people in the Black community, talk about schooling and opportunities for Black people, the protests. Eventually we'll get to talking about allyship and being an advocate, and what exactly that looks like, and how we can best support the Black community. And then we want to do a panel discussion at the end to address any questions that maybe we didn't touch on, or maybe people want more clarification about as we move through this series. So to get started, Cedric, I wanted to just ask you, like, what are some important things in history that have led to the oppression of Black people?
All right, so this next exercise, I'm gonna ask you guys to close your eyes and imagine something. I'm going to read off basically a timeline of events that are important in Black history in the United States. And we're gonna go back in time 401 years to the year, okay? So I'm gonna say how long ago it was, and I just want you to imagine the age of somebody and what they would look like. 400 is a very large number. But as we get to the hundreds, I just want you guys to realize that is a very real number that somebody today could live to. And so as fast as I can, I'm going to say the year, I'm going to say the time away from where we are today. I'm going to say the year, and I'm going to tell you a significant part of Black history at that time, okay? So if you could just close your eyes and let's go in this time machine, okay? Black history in the United States, 401 years ago, 1619. Slavery came to North America 227 years ago. So that was 200 years of, and some change of slavery. 1793. The rise of the cotton industry leads to decreased demand for slaves. The Fugitive Slave Act makes it a federal crime to help a slave trying to escape. 189 years ago, 1831. Nat Turner's revolt, growth of abolitionism and the Underground Railroad. On 163 years, 1857, Dred Scott case, the US Supreme Court decreeing that slaves are not citizens. 155 years ago, 1861 to 1865, the Civil War and Emancipation. About 186,000 Black soldiers joined the Union Army over the course of the war, and 38,000 lost their lives. 124 years, 1896, the US Supreme Court establishes separate but equal doctrine. 111 years, 1990. And the NAACP is founded with goals of abolishing forced segregation, enforcing the 14th and 15th Amendments, and equal education. 100 years ago, 1920, the Harlem Renaissance. 75 years ago, 1941 through 1945, over 3 million African Americans register for service. The Tuskegee Army men fly over 3,000 missions, but continue to face discrimination. 73 years ago, 1947, Jackie Robinson is the first African American to play on a major league team. 66 years ago, 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education. 65 years ago, 1955, Emmett Till's murder, Claudette Colvin and your girl, Rosa Parks. 57 years ago, 1963, Birmingham church bombed, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. 56 years ago, 1964, the Civil Rights Act. 55 years ago, 1965, Malcolm X's assassination. 52 years ago, 1968, the Fair Housing Act, Martin Luther King's assassination. 48 years ago, 1972, Shirley Chisholm runs for president. 34 years ago, 1986, Oprah Winfrey launches her talk show. 2 years later, your wonderful Cedric is born. You see that? Don't open your eyes. 28 years ago, don't count my age. 1992, the Los Angeles riots. 25 years ago, the Million Man March. In that year, Trayvon Martin was born. 19 years ago, 2001, Colin Powell becomes the Secretary of State. 12 years ago, 2008, Barack Obama becomes the 44th US president. 2 years later, 2010, Trayvon Martin was murdered. 2016, Colin Kaepernick kneels for injustice. 2020, Black Lives Matter movement takes all 50 states and the world by storm. That is Black history. Any other questions, Isaiah?
Snaps to that. That was,
You're welcome.
you read that, my dude.
Well, big.
I think all of that just goes to show like that there are still battles that are being fought today. Like while there have been some victories and for the Black community, it was very easy after something like the Civil Rights Act getting passed to sweep everything under the rug and say, "Oh, we passed this. Racism's gone." And back in that time period, there wasn't all this like media and stuff like that, so it really got swept under the rug for years and years and years, and there was this sense that racism is gone, and we weren't seeing it every day. And as the evolution of technology has advanced and social media has advanced, we're seeing that it is still a large problem today, and we are still seeing the effects of racism and the consequences of it even. Some of those dates are, not even 50 years ago. There are people who have ancestors that are, grandmas, family members that were, involved in these things. So it is still very, very fresh. It's not there's not that sense that this is so far removed, something that you had, I wanted to talk about it and ask you about, with it being only 2 days away now, is Juneteenth. What does that stand for the Black community?
One moment.
If anyone needs to take a deep breath during this time.
Yeah, if you all need to, let's just take one. That was a lot. Here we go. In it for 10 seconds. Let's go.
This old white lady knows.
Hey, please chime in. We forgot to say this earlier. At any point, please do not think we are experts on any of this information we're giving out. I am a Black man. I have been for 30 plus years. I am speaking from my experiences alone. So if I am wrong in anything, please educate me. If not here, at a later time. And anybody else who would like to participate in this is not an expert, or they could be. I speak for myself and Isaiah. We did want to make sure that is known. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yep. Is that Nancy? You're muted.
All right. From what I believe is that it marks the time after the Civil War that everyone, especially people in Texas, were told about their freedom. And in fact, they were told 2 years after the Civil War was over. So am I correct? Am I putting that together correctly?
That is what happened in Texas. Texas was the last state for war reasons. So I just have a really brief history.com definition of Juneteenth, because I want to be factual in what I'm about to say. Juneteenth is this Friday. For our social media purposes, it is looked at in 57 states as a holiday and has been stopped at Congress to becoming a national holiday. Nike and Target have recognized it as holidays for their employees. But Juneteenth, short for June 19th, marks the day when the federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. The troops' arrival came a full 2.5 years after signing the Emancipation Proclamation. Juneteenth marks an effective end to slavery in the United States and is considered the longest-running African-American holiday. In 1979, Texas became the first state to make Juneteenth an official holiday.
So I think what you touched on something there that I wanted to discuss is that even though the law was passed, freeing the slaves, it still took up to 2 years for that to like really go into effect. And I think that shows just like how systemic this issue is, in that even when laws get passed, even when changes are made, they can be slow moving because there is so much racism like ingrained into the system of the things that Black people are experiencing, that it takes time to really for us to feel those effects of those things that are going on. So even though there are being laws passed now with the protests that are happening on, we may not feel those effects for a year or 2 years before we really get to the core of feeling like society is in a better place. So as these protests are happening, it's important that we all stay mindful that this is an ongoing process and this is an ongoing conversation, and just being mindful of those things. I wanted to also talk about the ways that Black people are discriminated against, not even by the system, but just, as a society. There was a study done in which people took resumes. They made the same exact resume and did it, had one resume have a traditionally white name on it and one resume have, a traditionally Black name on it. And they sent them all over the place to all various different employers and asked them, which of these two people would you hire? And the overwhelming majority chose the candidate with the white name. And so that's not even a law that can be passed. It's just an ingrained bias against the Black community of our names sounding unprofessional, or, when you show up to a job interview and your hair is how it naturally comes, it being considered nappy or unprofessional, or things like that. Cedric, do you have any other examples of some discrimination based off of just the way that Black people naturally come?
Absolutely. So earlier in my introduction, I left out a very key point that I would like to bring that back in. The whole culture shock for me and this Black Lives Matter movement came very recently. I believe my mom is watching on some form of this media today. But Black men in America and Black women in America see that racial injustice, they see racial injustice differently. And so I became a very strong advocate of the Black Lives Matter movement. One day I was, in figuring out how to articulate it, I realized that my mother did not understand. She thought I was angry at what was happening, but she didn't understand what I meant by I'm fighting for my life. And so I was watching the video on YouTube or on Facebook, and the video began. It was a don't call the police on Black people if you don't have to type of video. And at the beginning of the video, this lady was standing outside of her house. The lady was white and she was on the phone, obviously in distress. There was somebody recording the video who we couldn't tell at the time was a Black man, but she was obviously calling the police on this man for just, being himself. And he was her neighbor, and it wasn't the first instance where this woman had called the police on him. But you could hear from her conversation that she had been in distress. She had been in distress for a while. She was in fear for her life because of this man's, stature and color of his skin. Can you hear me?
You're a little far away.
Check. Can you hear me now? No?
No.
I just went out.
No way.
We can hear you
All right.
from your
Yeah, we can
cell
hear
phone,
you.
but it seems far away.
Yeah.
Is it far away now?
Yep. Still.
It's okay, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to
Just keep talking through it.
I'm going to, but has my video frozen at all?
No,
Okay, I'm gonna switch back over. I apologize.
you're all good, sir. While he's doing this, let's just take another deep breath.
Yeah, let's take a deep breath. Please take it just seconds.
All right,
Thank y'all for letting me know.
everybody breathe in. And out.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Wow. Let me turn that off. That echo is crazy.
Sir.
Is there an echo? Cool.
Yes,
awesome. So I had an idea of what was going to be happening with the rest of the video, and I just wanted to get to the end of it and see, you know, if this man lost his life, had we heard of him and whatnot. So I started scrubbing through towards the end of the video, and to my surprise, it didn't end the way I thought it was going to, but surprised me because the woman began to describe me perfectly. And at this point in the video, I had not seen the man who was recording, but I had scrolled far forward enough to not hear the age that she gave the police. But she said he is a 6'3" black man, and he is walking past me right now. And it hit me because in that moment, I realized that I could be trying to live my life like anybody on this call, like anybody, you know, that you know, and I could be running, I could be, you know, jogging, I could be driving and fit a description and have my privilege, the justice of me wanting to live my life just like anybody else taken away because I fit a description, because this lady is in distress. And this happened maybe 20 minutes away from my house in, you know, the next neighborhood over. And at any point, you know, having not heard, or even if she didn't say how old the gentleman is, like age is just a gauge, but I know I don't look 40, but like 6'3" black man, like all the police, you know, going out looking for them. That could have been me, you know, it could have been Ahmaud Arbery. It could have been George Floyd, anyone. And so it struck me that like, that's all it would take for me to lose my life, for, you know, me to be incarcerated, to be, you know, heckled by police officers because they would need to identify me. I'm not a small stature person. And so being upset, obviously, that I couldn't, God forbid, you know, I run freely in Florida or try to live my life, feel like I have some sort of rights to not be, you know, harassed or like questioned aggressively to begin with, but just it's distressing. And so to fit a description is very upsetting, but understood. And in that moment, it just made it so much more real because in that same neighborhood, I've been pulled over in my neighborhood for racial profiling because of my car and my hair and my skin color. But every time I've gone through that neighborhood, I've been pulled over. And every time that my conversation with the officer has ended, I've never been written a ticket. So every time I've been pulled over for racial profiling. And so the fact that I'm just driving home and I have to be stopped because my tag was ran, or they needed to identify who I was to see if I had any warrants. It's just upsetting and unjust that as a black man, I can't live my life like anybody in this Zoom call surrounding me. And so it definitely drove me to express this to my mom, who did not know or understand this is what I struggle with as her son, a black man in America. And so I have a nephew who is going to grow up in the same world. And at what age does he stop becoming handsome? At what age does he become a thug, or looked at as somebody who fits a description? And I fight for him, and I fight for DeMarco Fambi, I fight for Isaiah, I fight for Jalen. Like, this movement is so much more than a hashtag, a phase, a week, a day, a Blackout Tuesday, a declaration by a company. To me, it's literally fighting for my life. And it has been so fulfilling that there are people willing to stand right next to me who aren't the same color as me, who see the same injustices that we do. And so that's what has brought us together in acceptance, that our justice system might not accept us, but we accept each other. Hopefully that answered your question, Isaiah.
It did. It definitely did. Yeah, I wanted to take one more second to thank CGTI and Ashley and everyone who's been a part of this for this opportunity again. Like, we are so thankful for an organization that has allowed two Black males to speak and let our voices be heard and talk on an issue that is so important. And you can see that from even national organizations that hire and are predominantly Black organizations, like the NFL. They're not doing stuff like this. They are on the opposite spectrum with the Colin Kaepernick thing of, they silenced his voice. But you guys are actively giving me and Cedric this voice, giving Brandon this voice, DeMarco this voice. So we just truly, from the bottom of our hearts, want to thank you guys. We want to thank everyone who joined on this call and is going to continue to join on these calls and have these conversations with us. And if anyone has any questions for me or Cedric, or if you want questions answered in later sessions, you can message them privately to us over Zoom. You can email them to Ashley throughout the weeks. If you have a question at a later date that you think about while you're just processing your own feelings, or thoughts that you have on the matter of anything we talked about, or if you just have a random question that you want answered, if it doesn't get answered in one of our sessions throughout the next 4 or 5 weeks, we can also try to answer it on the panel that we're hoping to have at the end of this. As we move forward and as we start to wrap up this call, we did want to leave you guys with a call to action. There's a video that Cedric had showed me on Facebook that we think is a very good summary of the protests and why we're protesting. And it'll tell you the things that are going on. Before you watch it, I did want to let you know that it is hard to watch. I know that I personally was shaken by it as I was watching it. There is some language in it. So if you're, don't want to hear language, we can try to find other resources for you guys. But it is probably the best video that I've seen that summarizes all of the things that are happening and have happened in recent history. So we ask that you guys watch the video. You can ask questions based on the video and submit those to Ashley throughout the week. We will say watch at your own discretion. This is one of those things. CGTI is all about challenge by choice. So this is one of those moments of challenge by choice. If you decide to watch the video, Cedric, do you have anything that you want to end with?
I just want to encourage you guys to keep coming back. I feel like this is a very informative beginning, a very informative start. We want to invite you back because there might be some familiar faces that we have speaking on future episodes or sessions. And I would also like to let you know what exactly our next session will be about. If I can find my notes again. There they are. Okay. Episode 2 is what is being seen presently. The video that I just posted in the chat is the video Isaiah was talking about. If you haven't been seeing anything, if you've been, trying to be off of social media, if this is a lot for you, it is understood. But we want to help you guys formulate the words that you're meaning to say or that need to be heard, because a lot of times right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, silence means everything. Some people look at silence as complacency or silence as violence. And so the video gives you an opportunity to see a large summary of what this movement is entailing. So episode 2 is entitled What is Being Seen Presently. We will talk more about acceptance. We could probably go on to the whole hour for that. We're going to talk about schooling and zoning and funding. I have asked a CGTI leader and fellow activity coordinator, Brandon Moran, to join us to talk about exclusivity and the LGBT plus community and where we stand together towards our injustices that are continuing to happen during this Black Lives Matter movement. We were definitely wanting to start the next episode off answering any questions. So if you had any questions throughout this whole episode today, again, before you leave today, add them to the chat if you'd like them to be privately. Ashley, CGTI email or the social media. So CGTI Instagram and Facebook.
Sure.
Yes, you can send them privately to those. Let us know you want to make it anonymous, but please, guys, if you have a question, you are probably not the only person with it. We want to do our research and our diligence to answer that question for you. So don't feel like somebody else is going to ask that question for you. I feel like if we get a lot of the same questions, that could offer up a lot more time on an episode. But I will be discussing protests and protesting and advocating for change in episode 2. We look forward to having all of these faces on that next episode. There are so many right here, right now, and I'm so grateful for all of y'all being here and listening to this, and in Orlando as well.
Yes. I just want to thank Isaiah and Cedric for their honesty, their vulnerability, and their leadership.
I see you, DeMarco.
This, like I said earlier, stemmed from a conversation, an idea of how we can do more, how we can lead. I would be lying if I didn't say that there was a little bit of fear in starting this conversation, because, like Cedric said, there aren't very many organizations that are holding platforms, that are speaking out, who are making statements. And so I thank Cedric and Isaiah so much for all that they have done for these programs. And I'm so honored to know you two, and I'm so honored to have you as leaders with our association. So thank you. Thank you so much. If anyone has questions, please submit them to us. We will have them at the end for our panel, but we just thank you all for being here. If anyone has anything they want to add, I know the chat, Cedric and Isaiah, if you're looking at the chat, you should. If you aren't, you should look at it.
You're very welcome, y'all. I've been looking at the whole time.
You can multitask. I cannot. So I'm proud of you for that. But thank you all for joining. We appreciate all of you just being here and being part of this change and supporting our organizations and Black Lives Matter. So we love you all, and we will see you, unless there's something else you guys want to add, but we will see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick, can I make just a quick statement? I know we have a lot of advisors on this call, and I know that there's a number of students on here. I'm going to personally make a commitment that to bring at least 5 of my staff members to next week's meeting. I'm going to challenge all you advisors. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to bring in our youth. I say if we can bring in, we always have in D211 Snowball, we have the power of 3. Like if you can bring 3 people and you multiply that by 75, you've got your group. So I'm going to pledge to bring in 5 people for
We
my.
love a good pledge. Swole, listen, bro. I have been saying this new saying when people tell me they're proud of me or they love me. I always say it shows now. And so your power of 3, can I just say, over my last 2 years of knowing you and your organization, everything that you're doing, it shows, brother. And I appreciate that call to action. And I challenge everybody else here to do so as well. He messaged me, or he posted on Instagram, and I messaged back. A lot of my TI youth participant friends are from the Swolemites, and I was expecting to see a lot of their faces here. Maybe they're watching on a different platform, but he is raising those kids, or leading and educating those kids so gratefully, and like they have been the nicest people at camp to me, outside of obviously leadership and everybody here. Thank y'all for being here, but it shows. Swole, thank you. Appreciate that call.
Swollemite thing, that's new.
Swolemites, you like that? No? Did you already have a name for him? You can patent it.
So power of 3.
Yes,
3 people in my
sir.
sleep.
I like that.
Okay.
Get better together.
Anyone else have anything they want to say or jump in? We're welcome to. We will open it up.
Yeah, we got like 4 minutes or something.
Just real quick, I just want to say to everyone in the call, you could have been somewhere else. You could have been doing something else. Thank you. I know in this time, a lot of people are asking, what can we do? How can we do it? This is a step in that direction. To Cedric and Isaiah, so proud to call you guys brothers. Thank you so much. Martin, Malcolm, Marcus, they are smiling down from the heavens. Wow. And they are proud as well. This is the first step. This is the first step, the many steps. It does not start unless, pun intended, we get the snowball rolling right here. So, hey, we got it.
Wow.
And
y'all will be hearing from him before this panel. I don't spoil that before this session. This is over. This series is over. Y'all will be hearing from that man right there. That's my role model. That's my mentor, Simbarco. You bump me. Thank y'all all for being here. I'm so blessed.
You guys, thank you so much. We will see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It should automatically be generated since you signed up, and the registration will continue to be out for anyone to join. So yes, power of 3. Thank you, Big Swole, for challenging that. So
please ask those questions.
We will see you all next Wednesday. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.
Love
Bye,
you
guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'll be crying. Bye.
Love you.
Listen, cry and breathe. Cry and breathe.